Before you watch the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special on Disney Plus, I'm going to recap where the Guardians of the Galaxy are at currently, as well as what we might expect based on the trailers for the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. This isn't going to be too in-depth of a recap and stuff for their story, because I don't expect the holiday special to be too serious, as well as there's a lot of story to recap, and now that we're past the Infinity Saga, I don't like to recap as much stuff from before Endgame and stuff like that, so it's going to be a relatively quick recap. So if you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content. So in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, we get the origin story to their team, which involved them coming together to try to stop Ronan from using the Power Stone to destroy Xandar. So they became the Guardians of the Galaxy in kind of an unconventional way through a series of like Peter trying to rob the orb from Morag, which contained the Power Stone, which led to Gamora trying to take it back for Thanos, which led to Rocket and Groot trying to get Peter for his bounty, which led all four of them being in prison, where they found Drax already in prison, which led to them teaming up to break out of prison, and they kind of became the team from there. There were still squabbles like between Rocket and Drax on Nowhere and stuff like that before they turned the orb into the Collector, but then when they turned the orb into the Collector, they found out it was the Power Stone, and the Collector's assistant used it to destroy everything in the room, because she obviously didn't like the Collector. So they thought that it might be a better idea to turn it into the Nova Corps, but during that time, Drax had actually called Ronan to Nowhere to kind of enact his revenge for his family being killed, which obviously that does not go well. Ronan makes short work of Drax, and through another kind of skirmish sequence that they have in a space fight, Peter and Gamora end up on Yondu and his Ravager's ship, and then Rocket, Groot, and Drax go to attempt to save them, even though they weren't really in danger anymore at this point. However, Ronan managed to get the Power Stone from them because Drax had called him to Nowhere and he had beaten them, and now he has the Power Stone in his hammer in an act of defying Thanos, and he doesn't want to work for Thanos anymore. He wants to be his own kind of ruler. So he plans on going to Xandar to destroy it. So the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is basically now what they officially are, go to Xandar to try to stop him and help the Nova Corps along with Yondu and his Ravagers. And they are successful only after Peter is able to distract Ronan with a dance-off, while Rocket shoots a rocket at his hammer to displace the Power Stone out of it, and Peter grabs it in a last-ditch attempt to prevent him from getting it, and he almost dies while holding it, but all of the Guardians put their hands on Peter to kind of spread out the damage that the Power Stone is doing, so they're able to survive and use the Power Stone to destroy Ronan. And then, obviously, Groot died at the end of this movie as well, because he saved them from falling from Ronan's spaceship to the surface. He shielded them with all of his plants and stuff like that. But Rocket picked up a small twig and he put it in a plant vase, which then grew into Baby Groot, which is the Groot that we know now. And James Gunn has actually confirmed that it is technically a different Groot. It is not the same Groot again. It's more like Groot's child. It is not the same Groot that we knew in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, we begin kind of with them clearly having been the Guardians for at least a little bit of time. Although chronologically, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 takes place directly after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 in the timeline of the MCU in general. But at the beginning, it shows the Guardians trying to defend the Sovereign's, I believe, Amulax batteries. I forget if that's the actual name. I know there was a joke about the name of the batteries in the movie, but they're defending the batteries from this interdimensional being. But Rocket ends up stealing one of the batteries from the Sovereign as they leave, which leads to the Sovereign chasing after them through an asteroid field, and it's just a super big space chase. And it leads to Ego saving them, which they find out that Ego is actually the biological father of Peter, which leads to them going to Ego's planet. Not all of them. I believe Rocket and Nebula, who they had captured, and Groot stay behind, and Drax Gamora and Peter go with Ego, who also has an assistant Mantis, to his planet, so they can kind of see what's up with that. And Guardians of the Galaxy 2, there's a lot more character development than anything else, I would say, so I'm not going to explain every single little intricacy with this, but basically Yondu and his Ravengers come to try to get to Quill, but obviously he's not there, and Rocket tries to take him out, but he's initially unsuccessful. But then Nebula comes out of nowhere, and she incapacitates Yondu, and then is kind of like the pseudo-leader of the Ravagers for a time being on that front, while Peter, Gamora, and Drax are over on Ego's planet. But this leads to Nebula leaving to also go to Ego's planet to try to kill Gamora, and Rocket and Yondu are imprisoned by Yondu's old crewmates and stuff like that, who have essentially turned against him for the most part. But Groot helps them break out, and there's a sequence where they're killing a bunch of the crewmates and stuff like that to break out, and then they have to go to Ego as well. And then Nebula ends up going to Ego the Living Planet and fights Gamora for a time being, but she basically loses, and Gamora has to save her life again. But during this entire time, they're finding out more and more about Ego's intentions. They're finding mysterious things, such as like the giant pile of skeletons in the cave underneath inside the planet and stuff like that. So basically they find out that Ego is a Celestial, and he's trying to find a child of his, because he planted a bunch of his seeds and made a bunch of children across a bunch of different planets and galaxies and stuff like that. And he's trying to find a child who's able to harness his abilities just like he can, so they can basically become unstoppable. But it's also revealed after Peter is like getting the hang of his celestial powers and stuff on the planet, it is revealed that Ego put the cancer inside of Peter's mom, which obviously Peter does not like whatsoever, so it kind of wakes Peter up from this trance, and he starts attacking Ego, which leads to the skirmish with Ego and stuff like that, and they have to try to kill him. Rocket and Yondu end up showing up. All the Guardians are reformed with Mantis helping them now as well, and they manage to place a bomb inside the brain of Ego, basically inside the center of the planet, and they do manage to kill Ego, but in the process of trying to escape the planet, Yondu ends up sacrificing himself to save Peter, and there's this emotional moment where Yondu is basically, it's realized to be that Yondu was essentially the father that Peter needed all along anyway. So Guardians was more of a character development touching story, and it was still enjoyable, obviously. So that wraps up Guardians 2. So now Infinity War finds the Guardians journeying through space, and they find the wreckage of Thor after Thanos and stuff like that, and the Guardians try to go stop Thanos from getting the Reality Stone, I should say Peter, Drax, and Mantis, and Gamora, but then Thanos already had the Reality Stone. He takes Gamora to try to show him where the Soul Stone is. Meanwhile, Rocket and Groot are with Thor on Nidavellir to try to get a new weapon to kill Thanos with. So Thanos takes Gamora to Vormir for the Soul Stone, and that is where Thanos ends up sacrificing Gamora for the Soul Stone, because it's a soul for a soul. So Gamora dies, and then the Guardians end up on Titan, where they meet up with Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, and they devise a plan to fight against Thanos, which leads to the fight on Titan, which they do lose, and then Thanos takes the Time Stone from Doctor Strange, heads to Earth, where Rocket and Groot are there with Thor, but then he makes short work of everybody on Earth in Wakanda, and takes the last Infinity Stone from Vision's head, and now he has all 6, and although Thor tried to deal the final blow, he was unsuccessful, and it leads to Thanos snapping and destroying half the life in the universe, including most of the Guardians, with the exception of Rocket and Nebula. So that's Infinity War. So now with Avengers Endgame, Nebula and Rocket have kind of been working with the Avengers across the universe, kind of like mitigating the effects of what Thanos did. And it leads to, you know, the time heist with them trying to reform their own Infinity Gauntlet after Tony Stark figured out time travel, and they're trying to assemble their own Infinity Gauntlet with Infinity Gems from different movies throughout the MCU timeline. Rocket ends up going with Thor to the events of Thor: The Dark World for the Reality Stone, and Nebula ends up going with War Machine to Morag in 2014 for the Power Stone. However, when she does this, before she goes back into present day, there's a kind of like a interchanging, like an overlap, I should say, that's the word I'm looking for, between her and the Nebula that's in the 2014 timeline, which leads to the Thanos of 2014 realizing what they're trying to do, which leads to Thanos capturing the Nebula from present day and then sending the Nebula from 2014 instead back to present day, so they think that it's their Nebula, and then that Nebula brings the 2014 Thanos after they snap back the other half of the universe. Thanos comes back from 2014 to present day, and it leads to the final battle. But since everybody is snapped back now, that means the rest of the Guardians are back. So Peter Quill, Drax, Mantis, they're all back. Groot as well. The only one who's not back is obviously Gamora, because she was sacrificed for the Soul Stone, but the Gamora from 2014 is there, and she is in present day helping fight because she had a change of heart after talking with the Nebula of present day and stuff on Thanos' ship. So now that Gamora is good again, they all fight in the final battle. Tony Stark sacrifices himself by using the Infinity Stones to snap away Thanos' forces, and Gamora basically leaves, and nobody knows what happens to Gamora. So this is kind of where we're leaving off. Obviously, there are the events at the beginning of Thor: Love and Thunder, which I will get into, but the events of Avengers Endgame end with Thor journeying with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Star-Lord clearly has the ambition of trying to find where the 2014 Gamora went, and he has no leads as to where. At the beginning of Thor: Love and Thunder, the Guardians and Thor have clearly been together for a while because Thor explains how some time has passed and they've been in a bunch of different battles together and stuff, and the movie opens with them in a big battle together, which they obviously win, but it leads to them looking upon a bunch of destruction that's basically been wreaked across the galaxy, and there's a bunch of distress calls everywhere. So Thor ends up deciding to go with to where Lady Sif is, and he parts ways with the Guardians here at the beginning of Thor: Love and Thunder. So that's the end of the Guardian story right there at the beginning of Thor: Love and Thunder that we know of so far. So Thor should not be in the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, obviously, and it'll be unclear as to when the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special takes place after Thor: Love and Thunder. Clearly some more time has passed, though, however, because Groot does look older than his teenage self did still in Thor: Love and Thunder, and how his teenage self looked in Infinity War and Endgame. As far as the holiday special goes for itself, though, obviously, like I said, it's not going to be too serious of a special presentation or anything like that. I'm not trying to downplay it at all. I'm still very much looking forward to what they have to offer with this holiday special. But as far as the story goes, it's not going to be super integral, I think, in my opinion, to the entirety of the MCU. I do think that we will see this set up directly Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 does come out this upcoming May 2023, so we'll see how it sets that up. And we know from, it looks like the main kind of plot of the story is them trying to celebrate Christmas, so Drax and Mantis go to Earth or something to try to get Kevin Bacon, because they know Peter Quill always talks about how cool Kevin Bacon is and stuff like that, so they're trying to essentially kidnap Kevin Bacon as a present for Peter Quill. So it just looks like it's going to be a funny time, so I'm really looking forward to what they decide to do with it, and I'm hoping that it makes me even more excited for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because Guardians 1 is one of my favorite MCU movies, and then I feel like it fell off a little bit with Guardians 2. There's something about Guardians 2, it's not a bad movie, it's definitely a good movie, but it's just not nearly as good as Guardians 1 in my opinion, so I hope Guardians 3 really brings it back for me, so I'm excited to see what they do with the holiday special and how it could potentially lead into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Comment down below if you are excited for Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. If you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content, and I appreciate you for watching the video.